Welcome back. We're going to continue working with dividing real numbers, and in many cases we're going to transform the division into multiplying by the reciprocal, because you'll find out as you get to more complicated problems that writing it as a multiplication of a fraction makes it easier to simplify the answer in most of these problems. So not all problems, but most of them. So for instance, we have this first problem. We'll call it x and divided by -1. Now first of all, it's very, very rare in algebra to see this division symbol like this. We almost never do that. We're only doing that here because it's the early stages and we're teaching you. So we want to transform this into multiplying by the reciprocal in order to solve this. So it's going to be x, the division sign is going to be changed to a multiplication, and then we just take the reciprocal of this, which means you basically put it over 1. So it's going to be 1 over -1. You just take it and stick it over 1. Now, doing multiplication of these fractions in this case is very simple. On the top it'll be x times 1 giving you x, and on the bottom, don't forget this is x over 1. It's an implied x over 1, so 1 times -1 gives you -1, like this. And so what you end up getting is -x. And that's the final answer, because what you have here is in front of this you have a 1 divided by the -1 giving you -1 here, and then the x comes along for the ride. Now I know that you don't really have to do all this stuff. You can kind of look at this and see that it's 1 divided by -1, and you can kind of figure out the answer. But in a few problems, in fact in this next one coming up, it's going to be a little better to do it the way I'm showing you. If you have 8a, for instance, and you divide by 2, there's many ways to tackle a problem. I'm going to show you to write it like this. 8a, take that division symbol, change it to multiplication, and make that 2 into the reciprocal. So now we change division into multiplication. Now I like this because then I can multiply the top. The 8a times the 1 gives me 8a, and on the bottom, 2 times the implied 1 is going to give me 2. Now why do I like to write it this way? Because now I have it where numbers are on the top and numbers are on the bottom. And I can see that 8 divided by 2 divides evenly, giving me 4, and the a just comes along for the ride, 4a. Now, the truth is, you could look at the original problem and see 8a divided by 2. You could divide the numbers, which gives you 4, and the a comes along for the ride here. But seeing it like this is very, very helpful, especially for more complicated problems. This is a really simple problem, so it's easy to see the answer. But imagine a really long term here and a really long term here. It's going to make it much easier to see it on top and bottom so that you can simplify the fraction and simplify the answer a little bit easier. So that's kind of why I'm showing you how to do it this way. What if you have -18x divided by 3? So again, we're going to change that division symbol to multiplication. We'll change it to multiplication. The 3 now becomes 1/3, and so now I can multiply these together. The tops multiplied together is -18x, just multiplied times 1 gives you the same thing. The bottom is just going to be a 3. So really all we're really doing is we're taking this and we're writing it as a division in terms of a fraction. And now we see 18 divided by 3, which divides evenly. Actually, it's -18 divided by 3, which will give you -6, because negative divided by positive gives you negative. The x comes along for the ride, so you get -6x. However you like to think about it's fine. I'm showing you kind of my way of writing it. Now we'll mix things up a little bit. What if we have -s over 4 times -4? Notice that there's no division here other than there's a division bar here, a fraction, but we're multiplying by -4. How do we handle it? It's a fraction times a fraction. So don't forget the -4 is really -4 over 1. So we multiply the tops, and what we're going to get is, if you really want to write it explicitly, it's going to look like this. It'll look like -s over 4, -4 over 1. And so what you have is negative here times negative here gives you positive, so the result's going to be positive. On the top, 4 times s is 4s. On the bottom, 4 times 1 is 4. It's positive because negative times negative is positive. Now you have the same number on the top as the bottom, so you divide them out. Commonly call that canceling. You can kind of cancel it like this. They don't really disappear, it's just that they divide out, giving you 1, and so the answer is going to just be s, really 1s, but you don't have to write the number 1 there. It's implied. All right, what if you have -12 divided by -3? You don't have to do it this way because you could just kind of read it off there, but let's change it to multiplication. -12 multiplied by the reciprocal, which is 1 over negative 3. We do the multiplication, we'll get negative 12 times 1, giving me that on the top. Negative 3 will be on the bottom because it's times the implied 1 that's under here. And so what I'm going to end up with is negative 12 over negative 3. I divide them, same signs, negative divided by negative gives me positive 4. Now the truth is you can see that here. You could see that the negative divided by negative gives you positive. You can divide that giving you a 4. I'm just giving you some practice writing it as a reciprocal multiplication because that will come in handy later on. All right, what if you have something interesting like this? What if you have negative 6 divided by negative 1/6. Now this is something that you may never have seen before. What you have is a number divided by, that's why I have a long bar here, a fraction. Okay? This is something that will confuse almost every student you give it to them the first time because they don't know how to handle it. You have a number divided by a fraction. What do? Well, don't forget, this is division, right? Just like any kind of fraction is really division. So it's negative 6 divided by this guy, so we can change it to multiplication. Negative 6, we'll change it to multiplication by the reciprocal of the bottom. The reciprocal of the bottom is going to be negative 6 because it's a negative 1/6. You put it over 1, or you flip it upside down, I should say, and you'll get negative 6. Now you can do a straight multiplication. The answer is going to be 36 because negative times negative gives you positive. This is a great example of when writing it as a reciprocal makes it easier to see what to do. Now this is very simple. All right, what if we had negative 7 divided by 1/5? Same sort of thing. Most students wouldn't really know exactly how to handle that, but we can write it as negative 7, change the division to multiplication by the reciprocal of the bottom. The reciprocal of 1/5, if you flip it over, is just going to be 5. Negative times positive is negative. 7 times 5 is 35. So you have a negative 35, and that's the answer. Just have a couple of additional ones here. Not really difficult or hard, just getting some practice. What if we have negative 4 times negative y over 2? So this is multiplication, right? So you got to imagine this negative 4 is really going to be written as negative 4 over 1, and then this is negative y over 2. So you multiply the tops, you multiply the bottoms. Now the negative times this negative gives you positive 4y. And on the bottom, 1 times 2 is 2. So then you look at this and you say, is it done? Well, 4 divided by 2, you can do that division. 4 divided by 2 is going to give you 2y. The y just comes along for the ride. Okay? And then the final guy that we're going to do in this one is negative 54x over 6. How do we handle that? Well, that's just a straight division. We could change it to, we could change it to multiplying by the reciprocal and all that, but really it's just negative 54, which is a number, divided by 6. What is 54 divided by 6? It's 9. This is going to be negative 9 because it's negative divided by positive. The x comes along for the ride. So in all of these problems, sometimes I'm writing it as a reciprocal, multiply by reciprocal, sometimes I'm not, and so I understand that I'm doing things a little differently sometimes, but that means when you do your problems, you have flexibility also. So however you like to think about it and how you want to write it down is fine. It's just that you need to know that when you're dividing numbers, when they're the same sign, you're always going to get the positive answer. When they're opposite signs or different signs, you're always going to get the negative answer. All of these problems and all the different types of arrangements we've had is really just giving you practice with that concept. Okay? Now follow me on to the next lesson. We're going to get a little more practice with dividing negative and positive numbers in algebra.